Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Sparky's Tech Corner. Now, today we're going to be going through and finally walking on this Macintosh LCII motherboard. There's actually a couple things that we're going to do to it. Now, is it needed? No, most likely not. The main issue with this Macintosh is the power supply, which I'm still in the middle of walking on. However, there are certain things on this board I want to address. One is the corrosion, and you can see just how bad it is, and I'll try to get another zoom up of it. Come on. There we go. But if you look here, you can see like with this chip here, everything's corroded up. You got corrosion here, here. You got one on that chip. Just everywhere on this board you can see some sort of corrosion. Even on the CPU right here, you can see just a little bit starting to form on the pins. So what we want to try to do is we want to try to remove all that. And I want to try to remove as few chips as possible. I'm probably going to remove this one. I know about these other ones. I think these other ones I can clean up with just a soldering iron and solder. But I think I might end up replacing this one. I'm probably going to try to reflow the CPU. And a couple other deals like that. Now, I'm going to bring up an overview of what we're going to be doing. Now, on this overview, it's going to lay out all the electrolytic capacitors that's on this board that we're going to be replacing. And on this board, we're going to have notes out here. We have 9 10 microfarad 16 volt, 5 47 microfarad 16 volt, 1 100 microfarad 6.3 volt, and 1 microfarad 50 volt capacitor. Now, a good majority of them is located in this area. We have other ones here in this area. Now, if I remember right, this is the power inputs. This is what kind of helps regulate the flow for the power coming into the board. You have, I believe, a 12 volt, a 5 volt, and a 3.3 or 3 volt power coming into this board. If I'm correct on that. No, I was mistaken. We have a +5, a -5, and a 12 volts power going into this board. So, and that's actually really interesting, is working with -5 volts. When anytime you're working with something with -5, guy almost gotta think backwards of how to actually check an electrical circuit, which at times can be frustrating. However, if I pull up this view right here, I'm going to show you something. I'm actually got a capacitor that's knocked off right here. And that's the capacitor I found whenever I first initially opened this machine up. And I'll have the link to me unboxing this down below. And that's been a couple months ago. And I'm going to have a link to me actually taking the computer apart, getting a motherboard and everything out of it below as well. However, this is where that capacitor went. I was never able to find it, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? This motherboard was made back in 1991. These electrolytic capacitors have probably been hammered. So the best thing I can do is replace them with new. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know if this is going to affect the camera, but I'm going to be turning my okay, I'm going to be using a hot air station. Now, this fan does mess with my lights a little bit. So I don't know how bad it's gonna affect the camera. So we'll go ahead and give this a shot. I'm gonna focus on. Yep, there goes lights. And you're gonna see a little bit of smoke come off this because I just put a new tip on it. I put a bigger tip on it. I'm gonna work on this chip right here. I'm gonna get it off. And the first one I'm going to do, and kind of show you how I do this. So, we use our flux. I'm using M-Tech. Let's see, I'm using M-Tech NC559V2TF. Same stuff Lewis Rossman has. Actually, I got this from him. So, we're going to go ahead. Put a little dab of flux right there. And that's all we're going to do. Just heat up and pick the component up off the board. And do it right, you won't tear anything up. And using a hot air station is really the best way you can do this with surface mount components. You can knock them off with a... I'm going to put this up. You can knock them off with the soldering iron. That's perfectly fine. You can also... What a lot of people like to do is they like to take the side cutters, go down to the cap, and actually just cut it. But that puts a lot of strain on the actual circuit board. And I have seen people actually rip pads off the board. And that's one of the last things you want to do is rip a pad off the board, because then you're stuck having to fix it. So after demonstrating that, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward the video. Put some tunes up from Underwaterbeats, and we're going to get all of these capacitors yanked off the board. Then we're going to go ahead and clean everything up, and now I'm going to start cleaning up the corrosion off of the actual sockets. Okay, now that I've got the soldering done of the capacitors, and I've got the board somewhat cleaned up now, not finished. I did want to point out one thing. I did get the connector here a little bit. It is melted. It's whatever. It was still the power plug was still holding. I'm not too worried about it. I don't have an actual shield to put over connectors like that. That's actually a really important thing you want to do if you're using hot air, because hot air will break a lot of plastic components on the board. But like I said, I'm not too worried about it. This connector here came out unscathed, so it's all good. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna resolder all the capacitors back on the board. And then I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna reflow a couple of these chips, and I got a couple bridges on this chip. I think I've got a bridge on one of these other chips. I'm going through and actually putting fresh solder on it. So I'm gonna go through and fix those once I get the new caps on the board. So we're gonna go ahead and continue on. We do have 9, 16s, and we do have 18 different capacitors to put on this board. All my capacitors I have bought from Mauser.com, like with these right here. They are 16 volt, 10 microfarad capacitors. They come in little slide strips. They're good capacitors. They're cheap. Component level repair like this really doesn't cost a lot. If you know how to take it apart and fix it, you can get these components rather cheap. But a lot of people doesn't know how to do this stuff, so they'll usually send it to someone who does, or they don't worry about it. So with that, we're gonna continue on with the show. I'll put on some more Underwaterbeats music, and see if we can't get this finished up. Okay, I'm gonna stop right quick and point out a mistake I just made while I let this thing warm up. If you look at the caps here, there's a little black mark on it, on that one and on this one. That black mark is negative. It needs to go on the negative side. Now these little pads here, they're marked. Like on this one right here, there's a plus sign right there. This is the plus side. The plus side is what you want the silver side to go on. The opposite side that doesn't have anything on it, So you want the black side to go to. And if you can tell on this one, got black to positive, black to positive. That's my mistake for not paying attention. And when you're doing surface mount components like this, especially with like electrolytic capacitors, it really does matter what way they go on. So you gotta pay attention to this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these inked off with the heat gun, and I'm gonna actually try to put them on with the heat gun. Let's see how good that works, because doing this with a soldering iron, it's actually getting it's actually seeming to be a little bit more difficult than what it's worth, because I don't have enough of a blade to grab hold of. So let's go ahead and go back and put the music back on. Okay, that does about it for soldering on this. So let me go ahead and zoom out on this. Spin around this way. Got all these capacitors replaced. I've got all of these over here replaced. All the corrosion has been cleaned up off the board. There is one thing that I noticed, and it's right here on this pin, on this chip. It looked like the pad came off the board, but going through and looking at it close, I want to say it was just a dummy pad. Because this one is just a two-sided board. And looking at the actual chip itself, I couldn't find the pad, so I want to say there's probably no pad there for it. But we'll find out when we go through and get everything fixed on the power supply, hooked it up, and we'll test it, see if everything works on it. But that's going to be for another video. So I'm going to go ahead and wash this off, give it a good alcohol bath, get all the flux off the board, and that'll do it pretty much for today's video. This is pretty much just desoldering the old capacitors and resoldering new ones. That's basically all this video was. Showing you my poor soldering skills. I'm not really good at doing this. I do it as a hobby. I don't do this professionally. I do solder at work sometimes, but I know how to do through-hole components. Surface mount components, on the other hand, they can be very tricky. So unless you have the time to dedicate to it and to actually learn how to do it, I want to suggest doing surface mount components unless you've got some really competent skills in through-hole. So with that, if you liked the video, please like. If you disliked, dislike it. Please subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.